So the looming collapse of the Conservative Party, or Boris Johnson's Conservative government, is finally upon us. And honestly, are you sad to hear it?
No.
No. Just profound disappointment.
Well, these people... I mean, he got Brexit done, which, as far as I can tell, has had no discernible effect on anything that people were hoping it would get done. Immigration hasn't gone down, it's gone up.
Yeah.
He put us in lockdown for almost 2 years. Inflation is ridiculous. Cost of living is ridiculous.
Because Rishi Sunak decided to print money like it was going out of fashion.
We've got an energy crisis alongside the cost of living crisis. So, I can't really say
Massive housing crisis caused by the immigration crisis. I mean, there are so many...
We could go on.
We could go on. And there were so many people like, Boris is going to be Britain's Trump. It's like, yeah, we wish, okay? Boris is just profoundly disappointing from everyone's perspective. The people who wanted him to do things that were based and patriotic didn't get what they wanted, and the people who want to turn this into a communist state obviously didn't get what they wanted either, because they were conservatives in government. And so no one was happy, and so thankfully it looks like it's coming to an end. And the question will be who's going to replace him, but we'll get into that in a minute. So before we start, if you want to support us, you can go to lotus.com and sign up and get access to articles like this one, Something Rotten in the State of Britain by Noel Yaxley, where he's just going through the profound rot that lies at the heart of the British political system that is infecting the entire country. And honestly, it's not a great advert because it's disappointing reading. It's like, well, that's true. Well, he's completely correct on all of this.
If you want to be informed on these things, it's very important to be informed. It's just that being informed...
It's not good news.
Yeah. Isn't always good for your mood.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to not good news. So this catastrophe for Boris. Now, before we start, you might be aware that Boris has weathered many catastrophes so far. Less than, 2 months ago, something like that, was the vote of no confidence?
It was last month.
It was last month. Not even, gone.
That's how quick things are moving at the moment.
So last month, Boris survived a vote of no confidence, although it was quite shaky. A large portion of his party was actively against him. But this should have stood him in good stead for at least a year, and then this happened. So the Tory Deputy Chief Whip is a guy called Chris Pincher. And he is a homosexual man who has been accused of pinching people. Actually molesting people. And he resigned as the Deputy Chief Whip in a surprise resignation letter a week ago, where he said to Boris he drank far too much and embarrassed himself and other people. He sent his letter of resignation because at the night before, at the Carlton Club, which is the Conservative Party's private member club, he'd apparently got drunk and groped 2 people, I think it was. And so, groped 2 men.
Not great.
No, not great. According to The Sun, anyway. But that's probably true. And so, if we move on to the next one, Boris suspended him eventually after a few days of this sort of building momentum, because Boris didn't immediately get rid of him for some reason, or suspend him from the party, even though he'd resigned from being the deputy whip. And this is the point that they're going to make. Well, sexual assault is about power, and in fact Keir Starmer made this point in Prime Minister's Questions that's still going on at the moment as we record this. The problem is that Boris raised this person to be the Deputy Chief Whip, and so he gave a sexual predator more power with which to abuse people. That's the framing on this. And the thing is, the framing doesn't appear to be wrong. And the question is, well, why would he do this? Well, it seems that it's because Chris Pincher was a diehard supporter of Boris Johnson. And so Boris was promoting a sexual predator out of the predator's loyalty to Boris. Not good optics, let's be clear. Anyway, so Boris apparently, four days ago, suspended Pincher from the party, because as they say, he'd initially resisted the call to suspend him, but bowed to pressure after the complaint was made about him to the parliamentary watchdog on sexual misconduct. So you can see that Boris was initially like, no, I'm not going to get rid of this supporter of mine, even though he keeps molesting people. Why?
Deputy Pincher just doing his job.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, the meme magic is real, sadly enough.
Incidentally, apparently he had there was a sort of nickname or catchphrase about him, Pincher by name, Pincher by nature, that was going around right now. We laugh, but it's not funny. It's just stupid. It's ridiculous. It's an absolute farce.
How Boris could think that something like this wouldn't eventually come back and, I suppose, pinch him on the arse is astounding.
That's a great question. But anyway, so he apparently changed his mind after speaking to one Tory MP who'd witnessed the incident and was in contact with the victim. And then a separate claim surfaced on Friday from a young Conservative activist who claimed to be subject to an unwanted sexual advance from Mr. Pincher last year. The activist told the Times that the MP had put his hand on his knee and told him he would go far in the party at an event during the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. And Pincher had previously resigned as the whip in 2017 after being accused of inappropriate behaviour by an Olympic swimmer and former Conservative candidate. So this just, I mean, he was cleared after an investigation for this, but like, cleared is a very interesting way of framing it. It's like, well, we found that he's done nothing wrong, so yeah, but that doesn't mean he didn't do it.
Of course not.
Anyway, but then more allegations started coming out about Pincher. A slew of 6 further allegations about his sexual misconduct emerged in the Sunday papers, including claims of groping MPs. So why do you have this person near you at all?
And he's not just making it difficult for you from a purely optic standpoint. If he's groping other MPs as well, he's making things difficult just from a workplace environment.
Yeah, but why this guy? Why this guy?
I mean, Boris has been through so many scandals recently that I can understand that he would want to surround himself with people who are diehard supporters. And the only logic I could possibly pass out from this is who's going to be more of a diehard supporter than somebody that you keep excusing for such behaviour.
But there's one thing having diehard supporters, but another thing is having open liabilities. Which, and even if you don't care that he keeps molesting people, which strikes me as the sort of thing you probably should care about, even if for some reason that doesn't bother you, this guy's just a liability at best. But anyway, a source at 10 Downing Street said that Johnson probably knew about the allegations because of his nickname, Pincher by name, Pincher by nature. But he argued he was unable to look into the unsubstantiated rumour before appointing him as Deputy Chief Whip in February. The Times published an article saying how Boris probably knew about the allegations, and it seems that's probably the case. They say that sources involved in discussions about the makeup of Johnson's first government said the Prime Minister had been well aware of the Pincher's alleged inappropriate behaviour and had used to joke that he'd cornered the market in sex pest MPs supporting his leadership.
That's not a good look at all.
No, that's not a good look. Mogg came out and was like, well, you can't judge people based on rumours. There's gossip and rumours. Like, yeah. And they keep coming and coming and coming. You keep getting, a flurry of allegations from people, literally MPs, saying this guy keeps molesting us. Could you get rid of him, please? And eventually Boris is like, oh, if I have to. So this is the problem with Eton. But anyway, so Boris came out and apologised for this, obviously, a couple of days ago. Apologised for making Chris Pincher the Deputy Chief Whip, saying, in hindsight, it was the wrong thing to do. So really, you needed hindsight for that, Boris.
Yeah, well, it's all 2020, isn't it?
Should I put this known sexual molester in a position of power? No, in hindsight, that looks bad. And within minutes of this apology, Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak both dramatically resigned. And so this was Rishi Sunak saying, well, the public rightly expect government to be conducted properly, competently and seriously, blah, blah, blah. And so Rishi Sunak has decided to resign. He was Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Sajid Javid, who is Secretary of State, also resigned. Sajid has made quite an emotional show of this, so who knows. But yeah, so he says, oh, it's been an enormous privilege, blah, blah, blah. I can't in good conscience continue. And then a slew of resignations began that may well still be going on by the time you get this. So the Minister for Children and Families, which was Will Quince, resigned. The Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Jonathan Gullis, resigned. The Parliamentary Private Secretary, Laura Trott, resigned. She's an MP as well. She resigned. And if we go to the BBC, actually, they have a list of resignations, which was featured on here at some point. This is a live update, so it's probably not at the top now. So in addition to this was Alex Chalk was the Solicitor General, Jonathan Gullis, as I said, Saqib Bhatti, which is the Health Secretary or Principal Private Secretary to the Health Secretary, a bunch of others. And so about a dozen people, basically, have resigned who are close to Boris. And so the question is, right, who's left? And is it likely that Boris is going to survive this? And so the Times have been asking this. Apparently, not really, at least in theory, right? Because as I said earlier, because he had survived the vote of no confidence, you can't have another one for another year, according to Conservative Party internal rules, unless these rules are changed.
How can they be changed?
Well, the thing is, this happened to Theresa May. So Graham Brady is the chairman of the Backbench 1922 Committee, which is like, I don't know how to describe them. They're like, they're like a kind of the Dark Lords of the Conservative Party.
Oh, okay.
Who
Shrouded in shadows.
Yeah, shrouded in shadows, like, like governing things from behind the scenes. Now, there's a bit. I'm making that sound a lot more shady than it is. Basically, they're like an internal committee, basically that regulates the party. And it was Brady himself who, in 2019, told Theresa May that she had to go after she had survived a vote of no confidence only 6 months before. So he's done this already. He's done this before.
So he might just turn to Boris and say,
"You've got to go."
I mean, the interesting thing is that Boris has faced a number of rebellions throughout his leadership so far, and we know that there's at least 100 people within the Conservative Party who massively disagree with his leadership up until this point.
Well, I think, sorry to interrupt, it was 147 who voted against him.
Oh, yes.
In the last vote of no confidence.
That's true, but I think I was referring also to when they were seeing about whether they should continue lockdown restrictions. I think near the end of last year there was the 100 or so Tory rebellion that was going on. So we know for a fact that there's a lot of people within the party that have no confidence with him already. But what this seems to have opened is the floodgates for all those who previously said that they were completely on his side, they were going to back him no matter what. Because Rishi and Sajid, this time last month when this vote of confidence was going on, were saying, and presumably they knew all of this was going on behind the scenes, because in the politicians, I'm not surprised that they're lying about anything. But now, this time last month, they were saying, we've got his back under any circumstances. They've seen this as the perfect opportunity. And it's not anything to do with curtailing civil liberties, destroying our national culture and heritage, or anything like that.
They're fine with all that.
It's behind basically what is, sadly, obviously it's still a serious situation to have a sex pest in your party, but what is the equivalent of tabloid gossip journalism bringing the party down?
Yeah, I mean, Pincher hasn't been convicted of anything, if that matters anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I'm saying I think he's innocent. I think he's not. But it's remarkable that this is the issue. You know, the sex pest. But anyway, the point is, he's done this before. Basically, he 6 months after she survived the vote of no confidence, he went up to Theresa May and said, "Look, you're gone," and she was gone. And because what he had done is said that if she didn't stand down voluntarily, he would simply change the rules to allow another vote of no confidence rather than it being a year. And so that's like, okay, that's quite strong. And so if Boris Johnson doesn't resign, he may well turn up to Boris Johnson and say, "Look, I'll just change the rules if you don't piss off."
That's a strange amount of power to be vested in one person in this.
Yeah.
Not that I would disagree if he were to say, "Oh, get lost, Boris, get on your bike."
No.
But at the same time, that's still a very strange amount of power to be invested in one person.
Yeah. So, and if there was another leadership challenge, they need 54 signatures, more than they had last time to get rid of him. So Boris is in a much weakened position, basically. The political editor of The Spectator, James Forsyth, tweeted out that one senior figure on the 22 committee told him that they now favour a delegation going to tell Boris Johnson that it's over and they'll change the rules if he won't resign. So it looks like Boris is just going to get shoved out by the 1922 committee. The leader of the chair of the Northern Ireland Select Committee is also moving against him. He says, "It will come as no surprise to those who know me, but I've written to Graham Brady asking for a rule change governing the holding of confidence votes." And so they are basically, there's momentum within the Conservative Party. Just change the structure of the party in order to get rid of Boris, which is quite mad. And the 1922 committee will be meeting tonight to discuss this. So
stay tuned for tomorrow, I suppose.
yeah, it looks like tomorrow Boris will probably end up being gone. Needless to say, it's pretty grim in Boris Johnson's office right now.
I can't imagine he's breaking out the bubbly like he was this time last year.
Yeah, they had a meeting and apparently one cabinet minister was like, "Where are the cyanide pills?" So yeah, good question. Another minister said, even some of the boss's most loyal lieutenants could barely look at him. So yeah, this is pretty bad. And so just before the podcast started, in fact, midday today, Parliament, Prime Minister's Questions was going on in Parliament. And so we were watching that, and it's in fact still going on, as you can see. Keir Starmer was having a good day today, because, I mean, how could you not? You know, this is gold to Keir Starmer.
Leader of the opposition party is obviously going to revel in this.
Exactly. The Prime Minister's absolutely collapsing. Leader of the opposition party is having he's having a glorious
And sadly,
time.
it's not like Boris hasn't given him ample ammunition to do so. It's like, you know, I'm not a fan of Keir, but let him go off. You know, he's probably airing grievances that a lot of us agree with.
Well, the thing is, Boris was utterly BSing his way through the questions, flailing completely. And Keir Starmer could maintain a very composed, you know, this is just pathetic, Boris, you know, that sort of attitude. And
I mean, if it's right, it's right.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like, I despise Keir Starmer for the Blairite shill that he is. But, I mean, he's not wrong. And Boris is getting what he deserves here for being incompetent and getting nothing done. And Boris is sat there going, oh, well, I gave, you know, X amount of billion to Ukraine. And I'm like, bro, that's not helping your case, mate. You know, I gave your money away to foreigners. Aren't I good? No.
I mean, I suppose when he's speaking to a Labour audience, they might all just go, well, I mean, you didn't give enough money away to foreigners, sadly, Boris.
Exactly. But anyway, so Boris is in a much weaker position. You see he's being sat next to him is Nadim Zahawi, who's the new Chancellor of the Exchequer. How long that's going to last, if the 1922 committee are going to take Boris out behind the woodshed and shoot him, is unknown. But, I mean, so, you know, take anything that he says about anything with a pinch of salt. But I mean, he's not an economist, so... But then after Rishi Sunak, who was an economist, how much worse can it get?
And I think the government having official economists is basically just a ruse in the first place, because official economists of this form will just go, yes, I've calculated it. They're using this mathematical model that we should only ever print money.
Yeah.
Always, 24/7.
But the thing is, so the thing is, I don't even disagree with the things that he's saying here, though. He's like, well, you know, what we're going to do is, you know, not have caution on public sector pay rises. We look at tax cuts and all this sort of thing. We want fiscal responsibility. And it's like, okay, but where was this energy on day one of Boris's government?
Where has the fiscal responsibility been?
Yeah. Where was this on day one? You know, the last day of Boris's government, and they start saying words like fiscal responsibility.
Oh, finally.
Yeah.
I mean,
a bit late now.
Yesterday, I think Boris announced on his official Twitter that wasn't there going to be a historic tax cut going on today. And I assume that that's been shelved for the time being while they're in damage control mode. But, I mean, it's not going to help, like, a minor tax cut when everything else is so messed up right now.
Yeah. And he appointed, you know, a new education secretary. But again, you know, who knows how long these people would last. But the thing is, Michelle Donovan, right? The Guardian's write-up of her, she makes her sound great. And it's like, okay, if the Guardian are giving her a write-up that makes her sound good to me, then she must have been a problem. Why wasn't she there on day one? Apparently, she's basically a culture warrior. And she's happy to get on with culture wars. She's not afraid of taking on the left on their nonsense crusade to ruin our countries. And she's like, yeah, so don't go to university, because you're going to get conned into getting a crap degree that won't make any money. So good, where was that energy on day one? How is that the last day that you start getting half-decent people who've got good points? But anyway, I figured that we'd finish this segment by just showing the absolute worst of left-wing takes on this. Because, I mean, a lot of them are fair, but this one isn't. Nish Kumar, the alleged comedian, balancing out the fact that I can't stand Javid or Sunak with the fact that I love to see a rich white man brought down by Asians.
How very anti-racist of him.
Well, that's exactly right. How very anti-racist of him. But, you know, when someone tells you who they are, I think you should probably believe them. Anyway, that's probably the end of Boris.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the Epoch series, this one being on the Anglo-Saxons with Carl and Bo. If you want to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.